Have you ever wondered about the path not taken? That one moment where your life could have pivoted in a completely different direction. What if you'd taken that other job, said yes instead of no? We tend to write these off as what ifs, just daydreams. But what if I told you that in another reality, a place just as real as our own, you times did times take that other path? What if every choice you've ever made, big or small, didn't just change your future, but actually created a whole new universe where a different version of you is living out the consequences of that choice right now? This isn't just science fiction. It's a genuine theory at the leading edge of physics called the many worlds interpretation. It suggests that there aren't just other planets, but other entire universes, infinite timelines branching off from your life at every moment. Every tiny quantum event splits reality into a cascade of parallel worlds. In one, you're a successful artist. In another, you're living on a different continent. In a third, you're still with your first love. Today, we're going to explore this mind-bending concept. We'll unpack the science behind it, what it means to have infinite versions of yourself scattered across the multiverse, and the profound questions that come up when the line between your choices and your reality starts to blur. Section 1. The Father of Many Worlds. To see where this wild idea came from, we have to go back to the 1950 seconds. At the time, quantum mechanics was still a wild frontier, and the reigning theory was the Copenhagen interpretation. This theory said that a quantum particle, like an electron, exists in a cloud of all its possible states at once, a state called superposition. But the moment we try to measure it, this wave of possibilities mysteriously collapses into a single reality. This explanation worked by deeply bothered a brilliant graduate student at Princeton named Hugh Everett. The third, Everett was a prodigy, a cold, logical thinker who found the idea of this collapse messy and arbitrary. Why should the act of a person observing something suddenly change the fundamental rules of the universe? It seemed to put humans in a special, almost magical position. Everett believed that there had to be a cleaner answer hidden in the mass. So, for his 1957 PhD thesis, Everett proposed something extraordinary. What if the wave function never collapses? What if, instead of one outcome being chosen, asterisk all times possible outcomes happen? He theorized that at the moment of a quantum choice, like an atom decaying or not, the universe itself splits. One universe branches off where the atom decayed, and another, equally real universe branches off where it didn't. In his view, the observer doesn't collapse anything. They just become entangled with one specific outcome following that branch. He called it the relative state formulation, but it was later popularized as the many worlds interpretation. The idea was so radical that it was mostly ignored, and Everett left physics for a career in military research. He passed away at the young age of 51, long before his theory would get the attention it has today. Section 2. The quantum choice and the splitting of worlds. So how does this splitting actually work? To get it, we need to zoom in on the quantum realm, a place that runs on probability, not certainty. Think about the famous double slit experiment. When you fire an electron at a screen with two slits, it acts like a wave, not a bullet. It seems to pass through both slits at the same time and creates an interference pattern on the other side. That's superposition in action. The electron is in a state of path A asterisk and asterisk path B at once. The older Copenhagen view says that if you put a detector at a slit to see which path the electron takes, the wave collapses and the electron is forced to pick one. The interference pattern disappears. But many worlds says something different. The act of measurement doesn't destroy possibilities. It forces the observer to become part of the system. This process is called asterisk, quantum decoherence, asterisk. Think of the electron superposition as a perfectly tuned symphony. The moment it interacts with the noisy outside world, the detector, the air, the scientist, that perfect symphony gets tangled up with all the surrounding noise. The separate possibilities in the superposition, which were once coherent, now become isolated from each other. They don't disappear. They just can't interact anymore. So when you measure the electron, the single unified reality of your lab appears to split. In one branch, you become entangled with the reality where the electron went left. In another, a copy of you is entangled with the reality where it went, right? From inside your branch, it looks like a random collapse. But from a bird's eye view of the whole multiverse, nothing was random and no possibility was lost. Both outcomes happen. The you who saw it go left and the you who saw it go right now exist in parallel worlds, each totally convinced their reality is the only one, and completely unable to see the other. According to this theory, this is literally how new timelines are born, constantly. Section 3. Narrative examples. The lives of your other selves. That's the theory, but what does it mean for times u asterisk? If every quantum event causes a split, the number of timelines is practically infinite. Most are boring, a universe where a single atom on Mars moved differently. But some branches are created by your own choices, leading to profoundly different lives. Let's imagine a few. First, picture asterisk asterisk, the you that pursued a different passion. Asterisk asterisk, think back to when you were younger. Maybe you were a talented musician or writer but chose a more stable career. It seemed like the sensible thing to do. In our timeline, you have that stable job and your old passion is just a hobby. But in the moment you made that choice, the universe split. In another timeline, a version of you took the leap. That you went to art school, struggled for years, worked odd jobs, and poured everything into their craft. After facing rejection and self-doubt, they finally got a break. Today, that version of you is a celebrated artist whose work hangs in galleries. According to many words, that person isn't a fantasy, they're just as real as you are. Now, think smaller. Asterisk asterisk, the you that made a different split. Second decision. Asterisk asterisk, you're driving home and your phone buzzes on the passenger seat. In our timeline, you ignore it. You get home, see it was just a junk text, and forget about it. But in the instant you ignored that buzz, another universe branched off. In that reality, you glanced down. That 1 second of inattention caused you to miss the car in front of you braking. The accident wasn't life-threatening, but the recovery introduced you to a physical therapist. A friendship sparked, and eventually, it became love. In that timeline, you met the person you'd spend your life with, all because you looked at your phone. Two identical people, two vastly different lives, all hinging on a single second. Finally, let's scale it up to asterisk asterisk, the you in a world of global change. Asterisk asterisk, our reality is shaped by big historical events, elections decided by a handful of votes, scientific discoveries made by accident, conflicts started or avoided by one decision. The many worlds theory implies that for every possible outcome, a universe exists. There's a universe where your country has different laws and a different culture. There are timelines where a global crisis was avoided and others where a catastrophe we dodged actually happened. The you in those timelines would be the same person at the core, but your beliefs and opportunities would be shaped by a world that took a hard left at a historical crossroads while ours turned right. Section 4. Paradoxes, problems, and profound implications. As compelling as it is, many worlds isn't without its own set of puzzles. Critics often bring up Occam's razor, the idea that the simplest explanation is usually best. Why invent infinite universes just to avoid the wave function collapse? But proponents flip that argument. They say many worlds is times simpler times because it doesn't require adding a new made-up rule, the collapse, to quantum math. It just follows the existing equations to their logical end. Then there's the asterisk preferred basis problem, asterisk. If the universe is always splitting, why do we only experience one definite reality? Why don't we feel ourselves in a superposition of eating breakfast and still sleeping? As we covered, decoherence explains how the branches get isolated almost instantly. But defining exactly times why times the splits happen along lines we recognize, like a live cat versus a dead cat, is still a point of fierce debate. Another big hurdle is asterisk probability, asterisk. If all outcomes happen, what does it even mean to say an event has a 50% chance? If you flip a quantum coin, a universe is created for heads and another for tails. Both are certain to exist, so where does probability come in? Physicists argue that from the perspective of an observer times inside times a branch, events will still appear random and the math can reproduce the probabilities we see in the real world. But this is one of the most contentious parts of the theory, and maybe the most personal question is about asterisk identity, asterisk. If they are in finite use, are they all you? The theory says no. Once a split happens, each version is on its own path with no way to communicate. Each you is the hero of their own story. This raises some deep questions about free will. If all choices are made times somewhere asterisk, does your choice even matter? You could argue it makes your choice more times meaningful, while another you get to see the other path asterisk you times this consciousness right here have to live with the reality you pick. Your choice determines which branch your awareness follows. Section 5. Quantum consciousness. The next frontier? For a long time, many worlds was a fascinating but untestable idea. But now, some of the most speculative new research is exploring a possible link between the quantum world and the one thing that lets us ponder it: consciousness. This is where we get to the very edge of science. For decades, the brain was thought to be too warm, wet, and messy for delicate quantum effects, but that's being challenged. Some studies on anesthetics, for example, suggest they might work by disrupting quantum processes in the brain's microtubules, tiny protein structures inside our neurons. This has led a growing number of researchers to ask, is consciousness itself a quantum phenomenon? The theory, known as orchestrated objective reduction, or developed by Sir Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff, proposes that these microtubules act like biological quantum computers. While still very controversial, recent experiments have lent some support to the idea that quantum effects can and do occur inside them. Other, even more speculative ideas are now being put forward. Dr. Joachim Kepler has a theory that our brains might achieve consciousness by interacting with the zero-point field, a background sea of energy that permeates the universe, particularly during states like deep meditation. And Hartmut Neven, a leader at Google's quantum AI lab, has proposed a radical experiment called the expansion protocol, attempting to entangle a human brain with a quantum computer. If the person reports an altered state of consciousness, it could be a smoking gun for the quantum nature of the mind. So what does this have to do with many worlds? If consciousness turns out to be fundamentally quantum, it opens a wild possibility. Could our conscious experience be the very thing that navigates the branches of the multiverse? Maybe when we make a choice, our awareness is what selects the timeline to follow. These ideas are still firmly on the fringe, but they are slowly moving from pure philosophy toward a testable science. The concepts we've explored are some of the most challenging in all of science, pushing the boundaries of what reality and self even mean. What do you think? If you could get a glimpse into another timeline of your life, would you want to see it? And which version of yourself would you be most curious to meet? If exploring ideas like this expands your own reality, make sure to subscribe. We tackle the biggest questions in the universe, and you won't want to miss where we go next. And consider checking out our other video on the simulation hypothesis, which asks an even stranger question: is any of this real to begin with? Conclusion. From Hugh Everett's lonely thesis to the bleeding edge of quantum consciousness research, the many worlds interpretation has grown from a mathematical oddity into a serious contender for a theory of reality. It gives us a picture of the cosmos that is infinitely larger and stranger than we ever imagined, a vast, branching tree where every life that could have been is. It suggests that nothing is ever truly lost. Every road not taken, every forgotten dream is playing out in a universe of its own. While we are bound to our own timeline, knowing these other worlds might exist gives our choices a new kind of weight. Each decision isn't just a step on our path, but an act of creation, birthing a new reality for another self. We aren't just characters in a single story. We are the authors of an infinite library of them, and the life we're living now is just one of the volumes.